Well, hey everybody, it's game day for Lori Vallow Daybell, and she's accused of murdering her 2 children and her new husband's wife. She could face murder charges for the shooting death of her former husband, Charles Vallow, down in Arizona. So will JJ, Tylee, and Charles ever see justice? Well, hello everybody and welcome to Profiling Evil. Please hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell. You know, I joined Court TV and Vinnie Politan to talk about the Lori Daybell trial this week. Opening remarks are underway today, and this one is going to prove to be quite a doozy, to say the least. Now, the downside is we're not going to see a thing. We're probably not going to hear much other than the recordings that get published in the evenings. But we are going to get those kind of interesting court sketches from the artist. Well, with the jury in place now, it's time for the opening statements and our first look into the evidence that points to Daybell's means, motive, and opportunity for murder. The jury pool started with 1,800 potential jurors, which has resulted in 18 jurors in total. 12 of those are going to deliberate, and 6 will be alternates. Now, in a positive move for victims' rights, the judge ruled that J.J. Vallow's grandmother, Kay Woodcock, can sit through the entire trial, while J.J.'s grandfather is going to have to wait until he testifies. So hopefully the prosecution's going to get him in there early so that he can watch as much of the trial as possible. Now, I spent some time with Vinnie Politan and Shanley Painter on Court TV to talk about this case. And Vinnie's first question right out of the box was, why on earth do people join these kinds of cults or closed societies like I refer to them? Let's listen in.
All right, let's bring back in our guest, still with us live from the courthouse, Court TV legal correspondent Shanley Painter, and also joining us from Salt Lake City, Utah, religious cult expert, retired police commander, and author of Deceived, Mike King, also the host of the Profiling Evil podcast, downloaded on YouTube. Great to see you both. Mike King, let me ask you about this because we talked a lot about the cult. There's a group preparing a people that they seem to be part of or going to these conferences. What are those folks all about, and how do 2 innocent children end up being the targets of people that are involved in this cult life?
It's really interesting when you think about cult behaviors and cult characteristics, Vinny, because these are probably pretty normal people, but they just got a little bit of excitement, enthusiasm about being prepared with food storage or making sure they've got fuel. But for some reason, these cults seem to always bring together like-minded people who take things to a very extreme. They're zealots. They believe that they have special dispensations that other people don't have or aren't even worthy of having. And then there's this kind of feeling of elitism that comes as this little band of people talk about the fact that they are different, they're better, they have more light and knowledge, they are inclined to have better inspiration than anyone else, and that continues to bring the group closer and closer together. And what seemingly seems like a bizarre thing to you and me is slowly introduced to the point that they really believe that this is what they should be doing. They follow a leader. Another characteristic of these goofy cults is these sometimes charismatic, sometimes pretty uncharismatic, in my opinion, but they have people surrounding them that seek for perfection, and they believe somehow this single entity, this one person, is the one that's going to usher them into greatness. Hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to just take a quick minute to remind you about the Chad and Lori Daybell story map. You can find it at profilingevil.com under story maps, and I hope you'll go over and visit it. It gives you a chance to go through and kind of explore this case from beginning to end. Has all kinds of information about those first hearings, about what happened. But then I think one of the things that's pretty dang cool is it goes in and it talks about them individually. Not only has an overview, but it has a way to check out more about Lori, her former husbands, where she lived, Chad and his former wife Tammy, and the circumstances leading up to her death. You can learn more about what light and dark is according to them, and actually hear Chad speaking at one of those Preparing a People conferences. You can go into other family members like Stacy Cope, Joseph Ryan, Charles Vallow, Alex Cox, JJ and Tylee. You can look at the court processes, and you can get a little more information about profiling evil. So again, I hope you'll go back and check that out. Now let's get back to the program. Well, we talked about the jury process as well, and our conversation gravitated back to the characteristics of cult personalities. Now, like Vinny, I think we all find ourselves kind of scratching our heads as we try to understand how seemingly normal people can get sucked into these coercive control groups. It made me think of a comment by Dr. Margaret Singer, who said, "We know that people can be led to buy almost anything. Now, in addition to buying almost anything, we know that apparently people can be led to believe almost anything. Cults know that if you knew from the get-go what you were in for and why, you would never join. It's as simple as that." Well, the big question on everybody's mind is who pursued who, and how did Lori and Chad somehow end up connecting? I mean, was this happen chance, or was it planned by one or the other? And I'm going to be looking for your comments down below on what you think on that question, folks. I mean, what do you think? But here's some discussion that we had on the matter.
Mike, let me ask you about how this happens, right? So she's relatively normal, right? She's had she's been married a lot, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, there's a change that Charles notices. Do you think something changes in someone and then they're attracted to these cult-like figures? Or is it possible that the cult-like figure can manipulate someone and change the person?
Gosh, I think it'd be both, Vinny. I think people, again, have this like-minded personality where they want to have a little more light knowledge than anybody else. They're seeking out, she was seeking out a Chad Daybell. She'd been reading his books. She'd gone to the conference where he was speaking. She suddenly makes connection with him, and he's all of a sudden Twitter-pattered over the fact that some pretty girl is talking to him, and all of a sudden gas and flame come together. And then that's when you start seeing them feeding off of each other, at least behaviorally from what we can see in looking back. And as they feed on each other, then this thing gets bigger and bigger. And in my opinion, that's when you have to start creating challenges to solve problems you got. Like, we want to be together, and how are we going to get rid of these obstacles? Well, this case boils down to what the prosecutor claims is a conspiracy with Alex Cox to kill JJ and Tylee and Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, both as part of this couple's doomsday ideology. Now, don't forget, the prosecutor's going to also outline how these two were going to benefit, and frankly did benefit, from not only Social Security benefits, but life insurance monies. Now, I read online where a police report reportedly stated that all of these overt acts were done so that Lori could eventually be with Chad Daybell and complete her mission on Earth. Does that mean her mission is to murder people? Now, and while all this trial is going to be focusing on the events in Idaho, don't forget that there's still a looming murder charge in Arizona for Lori's former husband's death, Charles Vallow. So that leads me into the next topic that we talked about on Court TV. You see, Court TV showed this interior of the home where Charles Vallow was murdered by Alex Cox. And remember, Alex is Lori's brother. This happened after Lori repeatedly determined that Charles Vallow was a dark spirit, a way that she identified him as somebody that was no longer living but taken over by an evil spirit. Now, I didn't really answer Vinny's question here, but I thought I'd share these remarks.
What are your thoughts about the dance videos, Mike? I began this segment talking about them, that she was making these dance videos in her dance room. There's the dance room for Chad. What role does that play in all of this behavior?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting thing because, and boy, looking there at Charles's body, I remember looking at these videos over and over again. It's hard to imagine her in that room dancing and this narcissistic kind of personality that's creating either some luring event for Chad, or she's just so into herself. And I hope you don't mind, Vinny, but as you're walking through this house and this imagery, just the flashbacks that I'm having of this particular case is the fact that bullet casings were in different positions, suggesting that he was shot from different positions. But right there, that view of Buzz Lightyear sitting on the counter and thinking about JJ brings this thing full circle, and makes you say, why on earth did those children have to be a part of this wacky belief system? If the two wanted to run off together, why didn't they do it and let those children live, Tammy live, if in fact they're found guilty?
Yeah, and guess what? Larry and Kay Woodcock would have taken care of JJ and would have taken in Tylee as well. They would have done it. Those grandparents loved that little guy. Mike King, thanks so much. We're going to need your help throughout our coverage of this case.
Well, hey, folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to share my thoughts about our affiliate, Truthfinder. I use Truthfinder every single day to research the people and the cases that we're talking about here. But you can use it to reconnect with a loved one, find an old friend, or look up your former schoolmates. Now, they make searching really easy, and all you got to do is enter a name, an address, a phone number, or an email. Then you're provided with this really cool list that you can start to explore. Use Truthfinder to figure out who that new neighbor really is, or keep your family safe by checking out the parents in your kids' carpool. Now, many of you use the internet to search out new friends, but you can use Truthfinder to sniff out scammers and online predators, especially before you meet them in person. And folks, we get a small commission when you sign up. It's about enough to buy a small soda, but you gain the ability to satisfy your curiosity, protect your family, and find the truth out about people in your life. Please take advantage of the special Profiling Evil discount code. It's on the screen and it's also in the description down below. And remember, you can cancel this thing at any time. Now, let's get back to today's crime case. Well, like you, I'm going to be waiting for the courtroom breaks and any information that comes out of those chambers in Boise, Idaho. I'm going to be joining Court TV through much of this trial, and I'll look forward to learning more alongside each of you. So keep in mind how difficult it was for the court to find 18 jurors. Again, they started with 1,800. Now, one potential juror was excused because she was the mother of 5, and she became so emotional during the questioning, thinking about the fact that she's going to have to look at autopsy photos, that the court released her. I mean, that kind of speaks to the responsibility that lies on jurors when they look at these kinds of criminal cases. Now, another person was released because they said what I think many of you are thinking. She wrote a note that said, hey, if your child was missing, why would you go to Hawaii? Well, that's an interesting question that I hope gets answered. So make sure you've hit that like and subscribe button. Don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and consider joining our channel memberships. My favorite, it's the Academy level, where you get a whole lot more for just a little more. And your donation, folks, really helps us push out quality content and keeps the channel alive. So thanks for sharing us. Thanks for supporting us. And make sure you're checking us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And you can also find Profiling Evil on your favorite podcast platform. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.